Welcome back to Podcast Recovery, everyone. We're your hosts, David O.
And Carly R.
Today we are joined in studio, fantastic, by our good friend Jess. How are you doing?
I'm doing well this morning, thank you.
Good. Where are you from, Jess?
I grew up in Savage, Maryland. My parents have lived there for like 45 years in the same house. And I went to, school in Columbia. I basically grew up.
What high school did you go to?
I went to Long Reach for 3 years and then Hammond for 1 year, or maybe a quarter of a year.
Yeah.
Let's be honest.
Okay. And when were you first introduced to recovery?
So I was first introduced to recovery in 2013. I had left an 8-year relationship, came back from Boston, almost dead. And, a friend took me to my first NA meeting. And, I sort of never looked back as far as...
Who was that friend? Go for it.
My friend Sam, we grew up together. He had, I think, 10 years clean at the time. He wasn't going to meetings anymore, but he
knew.
Saw me and he was like, oh no.
That works. And how long have you been clean?
I've been clean for 6 years now. I celebrated July 18th.
Fantastic. Well, with all that out of the way, we're going to turn it over to you to share your story with us. So take it away.
Sure. I grew up always sort of feeling different, not fitting in with the other kids, living in Savage, which is a tiny historic town with some apartments and some unfavorable people. So going to school in Columbia with all the rich kids, I already felt different. I came from a household that was violent. My brother and I didn't really have, we weren't really the brunt of the violence. It was, our parents, and we just had to cope with it, find different ways of coping with it. So at 14, I found marijuana and alcohol. I know that the first time I drank alcohol at my friend's house was Goldschlager.
Oh, yeah.
Which is pretty traumatic.
Those were fun nights.
Yeah.
Because you felt so fancy. You're like, oh, I'm drinking Gold, you peasants. Fuck you.
I was like, also, I might die from these gold chips. I don't know what's happening.
Yeah, it sliced your throat on the way down.
It seems great. Like not, but... How
is that healthy?
Through a series of bad judgment calls.
Yes.
My friend, her mom, both of there were 3 of us girls, and, I focused on gaining acceptance from the guys in the neighborhood, and they thought I was skinny and ugly, and, that was sort of always a weird dynamic. I remember being getting into the teenage years and, starting to see a glimmer of acceptance from others, right? And so I started to do what they were doing, which was drinking and smoking weed. Shortly after that, I graduated high school. I was working at a school in the area. I got a certification to, work in a school with kids, and I did that for a while. I met this guy. During that time, I started, I was doing coke and ecstasy and mushrooms and stuff by the time I was 16. Sneaking out in the middle of the night, going to DuPont Circle and stuff, taking a bunch, pills.
You went all the way down to DuPont Circle?
Yeah, I don't know why.
What? Yeah, I'm from Savage to DC.
I was with my gay friends, and so that was the place to be.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and so I ended up in some weird sexual places, and then, I would come home at 5 a.m., right when my parents would get up, and pretend like I had been sleeping and go to school.
Yeah,
you know
what
I mean?
Just an early bird.
They were like, wait, no, you're not. But anyway, my parents just never even acknowledged anything. I don't know. I lost my virginity to a 36-year-old. It was just
Whoa,
always.
What's wrong with that guy?
I don't know.
What kind of fucking predator? Like, you were a teenager?
He helped me detox one time, like not even that long ago. I guess it was like 9 years ago, but he's
okay,
always
now he's
been,
back to even, but still, that's weird.
yeah, I don't know. He's a great guy. We work together. I've had a job since I was 14 to support my habit.
Yeah.
I worked at a cafe, and then when I was 16, I worked at Ram's Head Kitchen until I was 18, and I could start waiting tables. And, my addiction has always been like, I have never stopped working until until 2013 when, okay, so basically, I met that guy. We were together for 8 years. I was selling Coke at the preschool, you know what I mean, to the other teachers, and shit was getting weird because they were showing up at my house at 4 a.m. And I was like, it's about to go down. I'm getting out of here. So I left a job I really enjoyed. I didn't want to go to jail or anything.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so, I left with the guy. We had a town and country apartment, which is like the move around here when you're first getting started. Before that, I moved out of the house at 17 and got a townhouse in Arbutus with another friend. So, anyway, yeah, that relationship went on for 8 years. That's where I met my drug of choice, being him, being heroin, I was doing Coke and, we would get the vials from the city and sell them in the county, at double the price. And
of course, county people are idiots.
Right. I mean, so one day I hit the red top of Coke, and it wasn't Coke, it was mixed, because that's how he, injected stuff, was to mix it in the same vial, I guess. And I immediately, my head went back, my eyes closed. I was just like,
oh yeah.
And I was with my girlfriend, and she was like, no, her dad was a heroin addict.
Mm-hmm.
And, she still lived with them at the time, I think. And she was like, that's not Coke. And I was like, oh,
Yeah.
Okay, I found what I want then,
Yeah.
if that's the case. And never stopped doing it since, there wasn't a day that I didn't do it from that point forward. And she was out, she was like, she saw it. And looking back on it, I can identify that look on her face was so accurate, right? She knew I was done before I started. And so, the distance there grew. She was still trying to save me from that relationship because she knew where it was going.
Mm-hmm.
And I was having no parts of it. I had met the man of my dreams. He looked like a giant Ken doll, and he was really successful. He knew how to make money. He had really high standards. It was just I felt privileged to be in that relationship,
Mm-hmm.
and we just stuck together. There was no cheating. We after I quit the preschool, I don't know, we just started going into, we moved. So a lot of this is really kind of blurry for me. I just know that we lived in a bunch of different places. We never renewed a lease. We often didn't clean out a house before leaving. We would burn it down and start over, every time. You know how it goes. Sort of we were stable, but
circus.
vagrant, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we would pick up sales jobs, build a sales team, get override on them, owe a bunch of money to a dealer, or had been in a serious situation where it's we can't stay, and we would leave and move. So we lived in Baltimore a few times. We lived in New York. We lived in Boston. It was just, we lived in Lutherville. We lived in Fells Point. We lived in Canton. We lived in Columbia.
In 8 years, you've named like 12 places.
Yeah.
That's not good.
And it's accurate. And I hope I'm not leaving anything out. We went on vacations, we drove nice cars. We had like nice houses. We had a dog at one point. But in between there was some serious unmanageability, right? I remember one time he had taken my car to work. I don't know. And it was one of those points where he didn't have a license and didn't have a car. And so, I woke up like out of a stupor. A whole weekend I completely lost. I still don't know, I still don't remember anything about that weekend. I remember Friday night and Monday morning and waking up and knowing my car was gone somehow, grabbing keys from the kitchen table from one of our friends or something and taking their car. And it wasn't a friend, it was someone on our sales team. It was a sales rep. Which is messed up to take advantage of someone who's like under you, right? So I took his car to work. Coming out of the city on 83, I wrecked it. And it's very vague what happened, but I have flashes of like someone pulled over and like I got in their car and like took off. It wasn't somebody that I know. I have no idea. But eventually, like I never made it to work, to the office. And in the office, I think it was socially acceptable to use because like we were the top sellers, right? Mm-hmm. So no one's going to tell us shit.
Right.
I ended up back at my house and didn't go to work. Like through a series of unfortunate events, our house got broken into. I think that was Monday, probably Friday. Mm-hmm. And everything was taken off the walls. My vacuum cleaners were missing. My dog was gone. Like really random. I called the police, and as soon as they got there, they arrested me. Like what? I had a warrant out from stealing and crashing that car. Oh. And so
like, this did not go how, like, where right. I wanted my dog back and I'm getting fucking arrested.
Right. They took me to Southeast District, which I didn't know existed. It was like a dirt, wherever I was, I have no idea, but I remember a dirt floor, a wood bench, and some other folks in there. And I was so high that like I kept leaning down to lay on the bench, and the girls were like, no, don't do that. Don't do that. And I was like, leave me alone. And like, I was so like, when they transferred me to central bookings, I had like light colored jeans on with all these blood spots all over the jeans because like I was laying in bugs of some sort. Yeah. Oh. And I went to central bookings. I of course it was Friday, so I was stuck there all weekend. And my boyfriend had gotten bail money from his mom, but then used it to use all week.
Oh my God.
So like I had to get my parents to come bail me out. They had no idea what they were doing, right? I think they met a bail bondsman in the waiting room. It was just sure. Get our daughter out, please. I don't know. And so my dad paid cash. He didn't know about putting your house up or whatever, and I don't think he would have ever done that. Yeah. So it was not a good time. That's a bottom that's pretty clear that I can identify. Like, hey, I might have reached out for some help if I knew it was available. Mm-hmm. Like, I didn't know anyone who had ever been in recovery. All I knew were like my friends went hard and they didn't stop, right? Mm-hmm. And none of us died, And so it seemed fine. We always made a lot of money. We always had
this shit. That's a fucked up benchmark. We're like, well, we're not dead, so right. Shit should be fine.
Yeah, it's like, and my using was I was able to save stuff for the next day a lot of the times. Like, I was able to, I would take...
Yeah, responsible usage.
I would take, Suboxone in between the points where I might possibly get sick, and that, just a tiny bit to like hold me over. You know, it was just like, I thought I was managing it. I didn't know a different way to live. I was comfortable with what I was doing. And I had like a co-signer who was worse than me because he used needles and he shot steroids and he did all kinds of crazy shit. So, you know, long story short, the last place we ended up was in Boston. I had moved, we were in Methuen. I moved to East Boston when we broke up. I stayed there for a while, and then eventually I came home because my car was like about to be repossessed. Like I didn't have, I was still bartending, I think, but it was time to go. And, you know, ending that relationship, both of us cheated on each other, and that's how we ended it. I feel like that is what makes sense, right? He left me for someone who had season pass at Celtics, and like I left him with some guy that I was like going to the he was like a seasonal worker who lived at the extended stay from Michigan. Wow. Right. So, I mean, who won? I don't know. I went home and I identified a friend from high school, and I moved in with him and became his girlfriend. You know, that's how I went from.
That's how it goes.
So now I'm his girlfriend, and you know, I go into bartending right away with my friend Mikey, and bartended at the Red Parrot for a few years. We would work 12-hour shifts and go up $2.95 to cop dope, come back, and like, you know, bartend
the
and be
whole
wrecked.
cycle. Yep.
Right. We would look like the other patrons. We would just be doing something different, you know, and you know, it just went on like that. My current boyfriend then didn't use any real drugs. He smoked weed, right? And not, you know.
We're not downplaying weed.
And,
no, I know what you mean.
Right. I mean, you know, but, you know, so he didn't know what he was looking at most of the time. Like, he didn't know that I was high. When I'm high on dope, I have a lot of energy, right? Until, like,
That's
I don't
weird.
around, like, I mean, I won't start falling out until around 8 p.m. And then I'm like, oh, it's, yeah.
Okay.
Seriously. I mean, that's what happened to me when I had a habit. Like, that shit gives me life.
Eric out of nowhere.
I 100% agree.
Yes.
Everything you're saying.
Thank you, Eric. I appreciate the inclusion. That's what we do around here.
Yes.
David.
What did I do? So what?
I'm pretty sure Eric was the one judging earlier.
Oh yeah, he's dead.
You've redeemed yourself, Eric.
At what point did you meet my sister? Like that's.
You know, I tried to identify this in the shower this morning, and I think it had to have been after I moved
Boston?
back. Yeah, like there were times we were okay. So I met your sister when I was teaching at the school, out of high school, right? And so we had this relationship going. As far as
my sister's awful.
Oh, the one. Okay, that sister. Okay.
You know, I really can't say. You saw me there. What year was it?
I don't fucking know. I was in my own shit.
I know.
I don't know. Like I just knew you were like, oh, that's the chick living in the basement.
Mike was locked up for an entire year of that time where I dated this guy, Troy. I don't think we lived together. I don't know, dude.
Dude, it's all such a blur.
I lived with David's sister for like a year or two in there sometime. And it, you know, I think it might have been when I moved out of this boyfriend we're talking about now.
I'm saying it's sometime between like 2008 and 2011.
I think you're right.
Somewhere in there.
Yes. It was a very transient time when I came back from Boston.
For both of us. Because I was sleeping on the couch upstairs.
Yeah, I know. I was like, and I was running men in and out of the basement. It was, you know,
good times.
That's
you know?
my story, dude. Men are as much of a drug as drugs were to me. I needed that validation from men, you know. I felt completely empty without it, and I didn't want to take a look at myself. Like, that's what happens when you're alone, is like, you have no one to blame.
Yeah.
You're like, what is my life become?
You gotta find a fucking scapegoat. You're like, no, I was acting crazy because this bitch was nuts.
Yeah. And with your sister, I felt like socially acceptable, and I wasn't using...
Oh, yeah, she's way worse.
Yeah. I think I was taking Suboxone when I was with her. It was toward the end of my using career.
Mm-hmm.
And that, you know, that was more miserable for me than any time using, was like being strung out on Suboxone, like trying to... So anyway, what happened was this boyfriend after Boston, I started like getting entangled with this other guy. Eventually I moved into his dad's basement with him, and it was a nightmare. I didn't even really like him to begin with. Shit was going bad because the boyfriend had found out what I was really using, and it wasn't weed. And I got a DUI. I went to see my friend Lily. I had one beer and drove home, and I was so wrecked off of the dope I had that day that like I got a DUI. I told them I never drank, and that like I had a beer, and it made me this way because I don't have a tolerance. And like they bought it. I had blown a .08. Yeah.
Okay.
But they sure took me to jail anyway. They were like, "You're a fucking rat."
Yeah.
They're like, "We can't." I said, it was on the corner of Oakland Mills Road and Snowden. I lived in Hopewell.
Yeah.
Like right behind, that was my corner, only inside. Right. And they wouldn't let me walk home or take my car home. They took me straight to jail.
That's Howard County cops for you.
I know.
Like, you have a flake of weed.
To be fair, there's no way I should have been driving.
Yes.
Anyway, that happened. Like, it was time to move on is all I'm saying. I identified this guy who, lived in Clarksville and moved in with him. That shortly became super toxic. I moved with my friend Rachel in an apartment in Columbia, and then that guy...
Rachel? Like the same Rachel?
Rachel
and Tom Rachel?
No.
Okay.
No, different Rachel. So then he moved in with us, which was a real nightmare because then like the physical abuse and everything came with that, and I had never experienced that before. I was never going to experience that. That was one of my nevers that was like really hit home with me. And he wouldn't leave. And the police were there every day, whether I called them, whether Rachel called them, whether the neighbors called them. They were there every day. And that didn't go on for too much longer. I remember I was waitressing at Mimi's Cafe when it was over there. And I kept having black eyes and like using all the makeup and wearing fake glasses, and it just wasn't working anymore. People were like asking me what's wrong and like how can that I need to get out and come stay with them and all this, and I stopped going to work. I like quit that job, and from there we all decided to close. Me and Rachel decided to close the apartment so that we could get rid of John for good. And that's what we did. I crashed on my parents' couch for like 2 weeks. And then this guy, Chris, when I was bartending, all that time before at the Parrot, he was a fan, and he had always been in contact with me. And he had always told me if I need somewhere to go, I could come there. And I thought he was creepy and weird. So I was like, no. And but after staying with my parents for 2 weeks, I was like, okay, yes. So he had a 2-bedroom, 2 full bathroom, luxury apartment in Arundel Mills, And I moved in with him, and had my own space. Like, it wasn't weird. We would go to the zoo and stuff like that. We had 2 sexual encounters with each other, just enough to keep him interested. And I swear to God, this is how I lived. I'm just saying.
That's epic.
You know, eventually he got deployed. He was not in, you know, I don't want to talk too much about that situation because he has a top secret clearance with what he does and stuff. So anyway,
okay, yeah,
he was going overseas and, you know, he was like, I'm putting the apartment in your name and I'll pay the rent while I'm gone and the utilities and stuff. And he put $1,000 a week into my account for other stuff, you know, for my lifestyle. And I was going to meetings at this time. I was still going to meetings every day since I met that idiot. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I was like on the floor smoking Newports in this nice place, like wanting to die. There's an ATM in the foyer, you know, it's like a hotel style apartment building. There's an ATM in the area downstairs, and I would like sleep with my dealer because like I would be like too sick to even go to the ATM. You know what I mean? Like, wow. It was just really, really, really rough. And, you know, him giving me that allowance almost killed me. And, you know, I didn't know where to go.
Yeah, sugar daddies seem like a good idea, but they can kill people.
Right. Like, it's like real. The worst enabling parent ever.
Oh, yeah.
And so eventually someone in the rooms was able to sort of point me in the direction, go talk to that guy. That guy was Jack, by the way. He'll help you get into treatment. And that's what I did. As it turns out, because I was mostly doing Suboxone at the time to just maintain, you know, and I would go back and forth. But they sent me to this IOP, which I didn't know what that was at the time. Yeah. You know, and they were like, we don't have any beds, but go here. And so I did that for 6 weeks, and I started not using other drugs and just having the Suboxone in my system because they were testing me, and I didn't like that. I didn't know what to do with that. I thought I might go to jail if I had a dirty urine. So, and they considered Suboxone clean. So I was like, all right, I'll get with the program, right? Like I want, you know, and still going to meetings every day. Going to meetings like 5 times a day, let's be honest. Yeah. On 5 times on Friday, 3 or 4 every other day, and starting to get an understanding of the program, but not being able to stay clean. So eventually, my doctor was like, "You're clean. You're not going to treatment." And then he like kind of winked at me, and I was like, "Oh, like I gotta get high to go to treatment, right?" And so that's what I did. I went and smoked a bunch of weed. Your doctor said this? He said, "You're clean. You're not going to treatment. Oh. Do you understand?" And I was like, "Oh." Because he knew I desperately want, every time we talked, I was like, when am I going to treatment? Like, I want to get off this shit. Yeah. And, you know, I feel like that was really compassionate of him. I went home and smoked a bunch of weed and came back, failed the test. And that was enough for some reason to get me into treatment. And during treatment,
that's the most hilarious, like, ass backwards way to get to treatment.
I'm telling you what, I don't like, someone help me live my life.
Doctor told me to go smoke a blunt. Right. I was like, all right, like, doc, I'll do it.
I can't use right or get clean right. It's ridiculous. So I go into Shoemaker, right? It's like my state Medicaid, you know, whatever. I also thought treatment was only for rich people. So at that point, I hadn't been working. I got Medicaid insurance. Someone helped me do that. And then I went to treatment, and they took me up to like 36 milligrams of Suboxone, or 20 or whatever. How does it go? 16 milligrams, I think. And then halved it every day. They tapered me for 11 days. And then
that's pretty fast.
My insurance only covered 14 days. So I hit the streets with 3 days of complete abstinence, right? And went into a recovery house and kept the apartment for another 6 months to use like the gym and pool and yoga studio and stuff, and have my friends over. And then my house manager explained that that's a reservation, that if I get high again, I have somewhere to go. And so I got rid of that. and things started to get better for me. I'd always had a sponsor. I'd always had a home group. My home group watched me pick up a white key tag every 30 days, and so I started getting my shit together. I made goals. I think it was really hard for me to get clean because I still had a lot of outside stuff. And I was like dying on the inside. Fast forward, I was in that recovery. I became the house manager after 9 months or a year. I was in that recovery house for 3.5 years with
That's
a whole
the type
lot
of person you are. Like in 30 days, you're like, I'm gonna run this bitch. You wait.
I got
until
in there
I'm in charge.
Right. I got in there and set some goals, man, and I didn't stop. Like I wanted to be done my 12 steps because I believed in that modality of recovery, right? And I wanted to buy a house by the time I left there. I was working 2 or 3 jobs at different times, and at the same time as well, my rent was covered because I was a house manager and they gave me a full rent stipend, so I wasn't paying rent, and I was just socking away money. And by the time I moved out of there, Jack and I were engaged. No, Jack and I had been engaged for a couple of years. We were getting married. Mm-hmm. So I left the house. We bought a house in November and got married in January. And the way we bought a house was interesting because Mike and Joni, who have recovery houses in the area as well, sold us the house that Jack had been living in for the past 5 years. And the way they did that was charged a lot of interest, right? We paid the closing costs and stuff, but we couldn't afford a $450,000 house, right? Mm-hmm. But we had fixed our credit and everything like that, and we got pre-qualified to buy a house. Yeah. And then, we told Mike, hey, he's going to be moving out, or we're looking for a house. And he was like, don't do anything else. And he's like, I've been wanting Jack to buy this house. And so we did that.
Mike and Joni are fucking amazing.
Yeah, they really are. They really are. We were on the phone with them yesterday when we were at the beach. So anyway, we bought the house. After 2 years, our jobs are getting better. We refinanced to get a lower interest rate, and the bank owns the mortgage now, right? We qualified for the mortgage ourselves. And, it's like we just keep setting goals and hitting them, which has always been really important for me, probably because of all my sales training. I just thought about that. We got married in the Cayman Islands, Jack applied for all these expungements, and I didn't think he would even be able to get a passport, but we made the reservations anyway and stuff, right? And then he got the mail. This was not even a week before we were supposed to leave. We were freaking out. He got the mail with 36 expungements this time and a passport, and we were like,
that's awesome.
It's like,
hey babe, I'm good to go. Right? we getting married in the Caymans, I'm telling you.
It's just ultimately I believe that all of the work I put into recovery, and I already had a foundation and a base, even though I was getting high. When I came out of treatment, I was just ready to go. I went through my step work with my sponsor. I finished the 12 steps and 12 traditions by the time I moved out of the recovery house, which, let's be clear, took 3.5 years. Mm-hmm. And ever since then, it's I know that my results are directly proportionate to the work I put in. So I still, do the same stuff I did today, which was be of service, either in the rooms or out of the rooms. I'm in Narcotics Anonymous, by the way. I don't think I mentioned that. I'm sponsoring 6 women through the steps right now. I don't sponsor women who don't work the steps. That's just my personal preference. I don't want to be the problem and not the I don't want to be part of in the problem with you with no solution. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And that's just my experience. I don't want people to die on me because they aren't working the steps. So I just like encourage people to, I have my own experience. That's all I have, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's all I have to like share with others. I moved up in that position for living in recovery. I went from, house manager to some recovery manager part-time to recovery manager full-time. By the way, none of these positions existed besides house manager.
Yeah.
To like, because I was always taught like make yourself indispensable.
Yeah.
Like get in there and make your own job so that they, need you, not in like a negative way, but like I was value added to the organization. And, now I'm the program director and, I help run a nonprofit. We have 3 houses, 18 people, a women's house and 2 men's houses. And, it's a lot, especially with the women's house. And it's like better than it's ever been. I'm super encouraged by that. I was crying on Friday just because I'm so grateful. I had to clear the whole house out for the first time since I've been there and
for good
start
reasons
from
or
scratch.
Bad reasons?
For bad reasons. It just took a turn.
Yeah.
The house manager got on Adderall and then like just, secrets and stuff like that. I discharged the whole house and then we renovated the house, opened it back up, and it's finally stable again. So that took a year. And, I'm super happy. That's it, I'm just super happy. At times I feel a little burnt out from working with newcomers, but I got to keep doing the work on myself because that's what keeps me like healthy mentally and emotionally so that I can help others. I go to Al-Anon also because I'm super codependent, meaning on like I'll take on other people's feelings and responsibilities and, they'll suffer as a result.
Yeah.
It talks about through our inability to accept personal responsibilities, we actually created our own problems. So like if I take someone's responsibility away from them, they're subject to continue creating their own problems, right? Yeah. Like I'm taking away their ability to forge the tools they need to survive.
You're being a spiritual sugar mama.
Yeah. And it's not a good time because like what I'm learning is we both get hurt, and I'm not trying to cause harm out here. Yeah. What I'm working on right now is judgment, criticism, and gossip. I finished writing my second 7th step and I've been reflecting on that. Then the situation came up and I'm really, I am entirely ready to have these 3 specific defects removed that I've been holding on to. The 6th step, everyone talks about it being scary, but it really just, this time around anyway, like I feel human, like I feel self-acceptance from it. It was painful, but, the outcome is like amazing. So that's where I'm at today. What is the time? Can we get a time check?
We can go to questions.
It's 10:50.
Okay, cool.
All
right.
Definitely have some questions for you.
David, you want to go first?
Thank you, Carly. Yes, I would love to go first. Fantastic. So I'm going to combine 2 questions. So did like geographic changes like also combined with sort of like you talked about like absentee / neglectful parents, like they just didn't give a shit. Same with mine. So did like both of those things, how did they negatively impact your addiction?
I fucking hate you.
I took your question.
Yeah, that was actually on my list.
My parents were not neglectful toward us. They were violent toward each other.
Okay.
My parents were my dad is alcoholic. He is not like super engaged or, he doesn't have that ability. But my mom is like, overprotective, codependent, and she's a mom's mom. She's like a mom to her core. Like that's who she is. And, I hung out with her yesterday. My husband and I went to look for fossils and stuff, The relationship with my dad is still a little strained, even after doing a 9-step amends with him and stuff. But yeah, I think it was really just like the violence. Like I was combined with the fact that I was so sensitive and so shy as a kid. I just didn't know how to cope, and I didn't have any examples of what healthy coping looked like.
Yeah.
You know, it's like go
figure it out. Yeah.
Run and drink, you know, like.
Yeah.
So.
All right. What do you got, Carly?
So you talked about that the apartment that you kept as a reservation. Do you have any reservations today, you think?
So something did strike me as a reservation, like recently. And, you know, I can't think of, it's always like breaking up with my husband, right? Because we've been together longer than I've been clean, and it's always been, you know, that's a tough one, like, because I don't know what my recovery looks like without him. And I think I think we both work pretty good programs independently, and we have our own lives, and we have our own friends independently. But it's still like, you know, and he's 20 years older than me, right? So it's a real possibility that, you know, that will be a thing one day. You know, and so that's one of the things that I think I do still consider a reservation on some level, because I just don't know.
Yeah, it's totally
you know?
the unknown of like, how are you going to react to this situation?
Right.
Yeah.
I think like, you know, physically where I'm at and who I surround myself with, it's probably really unlikely that I would use, you know, but I know I would want to, you know, like using.
Oh, there would be definitely that
still,
escape.
Yeah.
Alarm bell going off in your brain for sure.
Yeah. Like getting high never stopped being appealing to me. Let's just get that out there too.
Dude, I'm
there with you.
Certain drugs. Like honestly, alcohol does not appeal to me anymore. Like at all. That one I lost. Like, and actually going to Ravens games helped, because I watched all these drunk idiots, and I was like, oh my God, I looked like that. I was like, that shit is it just doesn't appeal to me. But
my husband is one of those drunk idiots.
Occasionally, yeah, he is. You're like, why are you so angry? Calm down. Go drink a White Claw, you turd. Kidding. I love you, Garrett. All right. What's my next question? Okay. How have you addressed your codependency in recovery?
So CODA meetings and Al-Anon have really helped me. If you Google coda.org, like it'll have a list of character traits, right? And everyone I've ever pulled it out on has identified with it. Because that, you know, some of them are really human traits that have been like...
I'll be avoiding that one.
Me too.
No, you shouldn't.
It's just when we think of codependency, we don't think of, you know, it doesn't mean like I can't live without my boyfriend. It means like I take on other people's feelings. I take responsibility for things that are not my responsibility.
Because there's like different traits. There's like fixers, and then there's people who sort of play the victim a little bit.
Yeah, I'm definitely all of that. I like to tell people that they shouldn't feel the way they feel. That's another one that I didn't know existed, like downplaying other people's feelings. Yeah. Kind of like you at a toddler, like, no, you're okay.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like...
With a toddler.
There's a bunch of like little things that, you know, just the heightened awareness helps, right? It's not like I do anything perfectly, but knowing that, you know, there's a solution, I can now like seek a solution when I'm in a problem, right? And learn how to like train myself differently.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, that stuff helps. I don't go all the time, but like I go and I can feel myself getting strung out on a person. And that happens occasionally with a resident too, you know? So I have to be really careful.
Love that quote, strung out on a person. That is, and one of my like favorite quotes, like, you know, like in relation to that, is like, you never know how many like Hyundai Elantras are in the world until your girlfriend breaks up with you and that's her car.
Yeah.
And then that's all you see is Hyundai Elantra. They're like, is that her?
Yeah.
You're just totally strung out on a person. Just she is,
Yeah.
it's bad.
Yeah.
What do you got?
Oh, okay. Let's see. So you are big on setting goals, which is evident so far throughout your recovery. What goals do you have set for yourself now?
Ooh,
So I would like to buy
question.
another house, another rental, right? So we have a 5-bedroom house right now, and so through the pandemic, which we didn't touch on, there were 6 of us in the house, adults, right? And 1 cat who's really obnoxious.
Don't say that to Eric.
So now we have 2 roommates, right? But like we like having roommates it's kind of like subsidizing that time from between recovery house to like living on your own. There's no in between there. So like we try to provide an in between there because it's really but to us it meant everything to us, right? So that's part of the reason we like having roommates who are in recovery, in longer term recovery, like 3 or 4 years or more. And so I would like another house that way. I would also, I'm working with the organization that I work for, Living in Recovery, to try to establish the same thing. Like more of like maybe a 3/4 house where people leaving our program with 18 months or 2 years clean have somewhere to go.
Yeah, I'm
in the
like
area.
in Johnny steps.
Yeah,
sort of
like,
situation.
where can they go and pay $700 a month?
Yeah.
They end up renting a room in some normal person's house, having no support, having no accountability, and getting high again. And it's treacherous to watch someone you invested so much time and
Or they go
so
after
much
quick
energy.
money.
Yeah. And then it's like, we lose these people. So I'm really passionate about the housing of it all, right?
Yeah,
like Martin's one of my
absolutely.
favorite people because I'm just like so inspired by him,
Dude, he's killing the game.
Yeah. So yeah.
All right. Final question. So you've talked about Al-Anon, you've talked about NA, you've talked about CODA. How important is a multifaceted approach to recovery, and not necessarily painting yourself into a corner with like, I have to go to this fellowship or that fellowship, but being open to all the different possibilities of help coming your way?
Yeah. So yesterday I was reading the book Drop the Rock, and it's on steps 6 and 7, and I believe it's AA based. It's just it's an author. It's not like world service of any sort approved, but that was really helpful to me. I look for recovery. I mean, Brene Brown,
Brene Brown is amazing.
Yeah. Like I'm not so...
Anybody listening, go to your local Barnes and Noble or just go on Amazon, get some Brene Brown. It'll change your life.
Yeah, or the podcasts that podcasts.
Podcasts, recovery podcasts are fantastic for your recovery. Also tune into those wherever you find them.
Yeah, I listen to podcasts, so I know that I connect to God through the rooms, like physical meetings and in nature. So I garden and go to meetings. That's what works for me when I need to get back to baseline. And 6 and 7, always coming back to that works for me as well. And so, one of the things that I think I just lost it. Oh yeah, what I was going to say is like having never had any peace, even from a young point, finding the peace through working through all 12 of the steps. Like gives me a baseline to come back to now. Like I know it exists now.
Yep.
So I know to search for it now. I know to reach for it now. And I didn't know that before. I think that's one of the main points of my recovery that is essential today.
Nice. You got a last question?
Biggest accomplishment so far in recovery?
I think buying the house was a big one. We definitely thought that we would be buying like a, I I thought we
A
would have
starter
to leave
home,
Columbia.
yeah.
I didn't want to call it a starter home because you know what? That's like some people's permanent home, you know, and
Yeah.
it's okay, you know, it's
That's-
good.
yeah.
And that's where, you know, I thought we would have to leave Columbia for sure. I thought that we would have to have, you know,
Expensive as fuck.
roommates in the city or in the, you know, Arbutus or something. And, you know, we work in Columbia. We serve in Columbia. We really wanted to stay there, but there was no way that was going to happen for us, you know? And so I'm really, and not only that, we're not in Columbia Association's
Jurisdiction.
jurisdiction.
Oh, that's great.
So we can do whatever the fuck we want. We have
That's
like an
great.
acre of property and we just farm and like have a wild ass cat. So
And set
that's,
Christmas
like-
trees on fire.
and set Christmas trees. Carly and I were like burning Christmas trees last fall.
When
or
did that
last
happen?
winter.
After Christmas last year,
Yeah.
we had a bonfire and set Christmas trees on fire.
Yeah, we burned shit.
It was fantastic.
No one says shit. Nick Proudfoot set off industrial style fireworks in the backyard, you know,
Where-
just
are you guys in Allview?
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
It's actually not even technically Columbia. It's like what's Skaggsville, something like that.
is it?
Yeah,
It's
it's
right.
not actually part of Columbia.
Huh.
Yeah.
I don't
The
know.
greater Columbia area.
Ooh.
The address is Columbia, so I
Tri-County
don't know
area.
what it is. But that's definitely my biggest accomplishment is being a part of that. So.
All right. Well, we would like to thank our guest Jess for joining us today. And we'd like to give you one quick minute to talk to anybody out there listening who's struggling, needs to hear a message of hope. What do you have to say to them?
I just want to say that it's possible, and you know, whatever modality of recovery you choose, you know, you have to be seeking it out for it to work for you. So I encourage you to, you know, explore and seek out, you know, what works for each individual.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, here at Podcast Recovery, we are aiming to expand the scope of support for recovering addicts. Accessibility and convenience of helpful services is paramount to combating addiction. We work to bring the message of recovery to every addict, wherever and whenever it is needed. We believe that a powerful voice of recovery should be obtainable, practical, and at the touch of a button. Every addict deserves to hear a message of hope, and Podcast Recovery is here to provide it. Well, everybody, thanks for joining us, but we need your help to keep the mics on. So please go to our Twitter, our Facebook, our Instagram, our YouTube, like, share, subscribe. If you'd like to become part of the Podcast Recovery family, please go to our Patreon and, you know, throw us a few shekels. We need it because we are fully self-supporting and we need equipment and stuff. So we appreciate all of that. But yes, most importantly, everybody out there,
Stay safe and stay clean.